You are now tuned into Celeste the Therapist Podcast. Hello, my name is Celeste. Thank you so much for giving me a try. If you are new here, I want to say thank you so much for checking me out. What we do here is I talk about areas of our lives that we get stuck in. I talk about why we get stuck, and I help you shift the way you think about it by giving you practical tools. I'm all about using what you have, starting where you can. And I think a lot of times people tend to give up because they don't understand why they're feeling this things that they're feeling or why things are happening. And I find that the more educated we are about a topic, the better it is for us to create change in our life. If you are a longtime listener, thank you so much for sticking it out with me. I appreciate you. If you enjoy these episodes that I do me a favor, share it with somebody that you love. If you want a topic discussed, all you got to do is email me info@celestetherapist.com. If you want to follow me, you can follow me everywhere at Celeste the Therapist. Also, I have a whole wellness center that I created called Shifting the Way You Think. And if you want to learn more about the Wellness Center, get involved, attend one of the classes, all you got to do is go to stwyt.com. Again, that's www.stwyt.com. All right, let's get into this amazing episode. Hey, y'all, before we get started on today's episode, this is episode 500. I wish I had some sound effects because, I was like, oh my gosh, like I hit the 500 mark. And just so we're clear, I would not have been able to hit the 500 mark if I didn't start with one back in 2018. It feels like ages ago. Ages ago. So I'm so excited, a huge milestone. And, 500 episodes. I have this wellness center, the life that I have created for me professionally, where I'm going after the things that I feel like I was destined to do, has been such a journey emotionally, which is crazy because we're talking about emotions and honoring our emotions today. But it's been such a journey, and that wasn't intentional. I didn't say like I'm gonna talk about emotions because it's the 500th episode. As I'm saying this right now, I'm realizing that it could connect, and I'll tie it in. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'll tie it in. As I'm talking about honoring your emotions, to making sure you're thinking about your dreams and your goals and recognizing how the emotions play. That was not a part of the program today, but I'm gonna like intertwine it in somehow. You know how I do if you've been here for a long time. So yeah, 500 episodes. Beyond excited, beyond grateful for everyone across the world that listens to me. It's not just the United States. We have people in different parts of every continent that listens to me. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I could not continue to push this podcast if it wasn't for you listening, if it wasn't for you sharing, purchasing my books, going to my classes, whatever you've done, sharing a post on social media. Like, I'm excited. I'm grateful. It's scary sometimes, but you know what I'm saying? Like, but I'm grateful. All right, let's get into today's episode. So we're talking about honoring our emotions. So important. And you're gonna understand why it's important. I seen a post that was like, "Oh my gosh, I wish these emotions weren't here. They suck." I get it. I feel you, like hardcore. I feel you. I wish that it didn't feel as hard. But the more I leaned into the fact that, you know what, I'm gonna have these emotions, I don't feel like things are just happening to me in life. So let's just start with understanding. And also, I'm on YouTube for all my audio listeners. I do visuals so that people who are more visually inclined, like me, can look at it. I encourage you to use this podcast as a teaching modality where you're able to take notes and have that notebook, call it your healing notebook or my journey to wellness, whatever you want to call it. Add these podcast episode notes in there, so that you can go back to it and give your mind a refresher. The mind only has access to what we have allowed it to see. And if you have trauma in your life, if you're only on social media, if you're watching the news all day, if you're living in a toxic environment, your mind is only going to know that. But when you expose yourself to new things like this podcast or a book or a YouTube motivational video or a support group in person or therapy, when you start to give your mind a new narrative, your mind's going to show you the possibilities of how you can get things done. So that's why it's important. So definitely use this podcast as a learning tool to help you grow, because that's my goal. I'm going to talk about the issues, but we're going to talk about how we're going to get through it. So, what are emotions? Emotions are a complex combination of physical and mental states that are triggered by events or situations. So, the definition: emotions are conscious mental reactions that involve psychological and behavioral changes. They are associated with feelings, thoughts, and a degree of pleasure or displeasure. Guess what? If you're human, you're going to experience emotions, whether you choose to check in with them, whether you choose to acknowledge them or not. You are going to experience emotions. And the thing about emotions is that they're coming up based off of some past stuff. I've been through a lot in my life. I'm 42. I've been through a lot, and my healing process has been a journey, and I am so much more elevated. Sometimes I feel so I feel so emotional with gratitude about where I am, like psychologically, versus where I was before. Right? I'm sharing that because in 2025, something that's happened in the past could still come up. The difference in it now, with me being able to acknowledge and honor my emotions, is that I'm able to differentiate between like 2025 and 2005, right? I'm able to tell my mind, oh, nope, it's okay. This is the same thing that's happening. And if you're not somebody that's paying attention to your emotions or honoring your emotions, you're allowing something that happened in 1999 to affect you in 2025. And that's just not fair. Right. And it feels so real. It consumes you. Like, the feeling is real. I'm not here to say the feeling's not real, but the evidence, the logic behind it is not the same. If I struggle with abandonment issues and my husband's leaving to go to work, and I start feeling like, oh my gosh, he's leaving me. He's not leaving me. Logic is not right. Like, he's not leaving me. He's going to work. So now that I'm able to differentiate the difference, when that feeling comes up where it feels like he's leaving me, I can tell my system, like, no, he's just going to work. It's fine. So that's what emotions are. Now let's talk about why we avoid emotions, right? Because unfortunately, we're not taught. I wasn't taught about emotions. I don't blame anybody for the teaching that happened, because if you grew up in America, you grew up in a system where people aren't talking about emotions, where our system is not sharing like emotions and how it works. So why do we avoid emotions? So fear of vulnerability, right? That's one. Sharing strong emotions can feel risky, especially if you grew up in a Black household where emotions were not talked about. You were to be seen and not heard, where the emphasis was only on church. And so if you felt like you were struggling, you thought you wasn't doing the church thing correctly, right? And so vulnerability is not something that a lot of us, especially in the Black community, has been able to tap into, even though we are human, right? And you trace this back to slavery days, right? You couldn't show emotion. And believe it or not, a lot of the ways that things were done in that traumatic background has been passed on through our lineage, through our DNA, right? There's evidence to suggest that. And so it gets passed on and passed on. And it's up to us, as you're listening to this, to work on breaking the cycle. Be vulnerable with yourself. That's important. Social pressures, right? We avoid emotions. Certain cultures, social groups discourage it, right? Sometimes people say, oh, I'm going to be strong. I'm not going to cry. Like, excuse me, we are going to cry. And guess what? That allows us to be strong. Being strong does not mean that you don't have any kind of emotion that sucks or doesn't feel good. Being strong is you being able to recognize when you need support, when you are struggling. Past experiences. So traumatic events can lead to emotional avoidance as a protective mechanism to prevent re-experiencing pain. This is something that's real. If you've gone through some things and it feels hard. I had somebody on my podcast one time says we're divorced from our bodies because during some stages of our lives, being presently there has been hard. And so you learn how to escape. As soon as the emotion feels like it's coming, let me pick up my phone. Let me call this person. Let me grab a bottle. Let me go parties, because I don't want to feel this, because the feeling feels so painful, right? And so that's another reason why people find themselves avoiding. Lack of emotional regulation. So Not knowing how to manage these intense emotions can cause you to avoid it, which can be scary because guess what? They're going to show up in different ways. And then the last one is fear of conflict. So some people avoid expressing anger or frustration because they want to make the relationship harmonize. I was somebody that definitely avoided talking about things. I didn't want people to feel bad, forget how I was feeling. Like the audacity of me to not honor my emotions. I say that to myself now. I say that when I'm working with people where they're worried more about what other people are going to think or say or feel versus how their behavior is affecting them. And so those are some reasons why you might find yourself avoiding emotions. I'm sharing this because I need you to have grace with yourself as I'm talking about these things so you can understand it didn't just come out of nowhere. Like there are reasons why we're not in a space of being able to be vulnerable. What are the consequences of avoiding your emotions, right? I need to share this with you because I don't want you to continue going through life avoiding things that are hard. These are some consequences that you may find yourself struggling with. Mental health issues, right? Avoiding emotions can contribute to higher levels of anxiety, depression, and stress because guess what? Those feelings are just going to keep building up over time. The amount of sadness and deep darkness I felt in my system was due to me avoiding emotions, right? I mean, they were there, but I didn't know what they were. I couldn't name them. They just started showing up in different ways. When I look back in hindsight at my life, I can see how it showed up. Relationship problems, right? If you are avoiding emotions and how you're feeling in your relationships, whether intimate, family, friends, so work, social, you're gonna find yourself struggling and having issues in these relationships. Physical symptoms. This is huge. Chronic emotional suppression can manifest physically through symptoms like headache, fatigue, muscle tension, and digestive issues. You may call yourself avoiding emotions. You're just prohibiting them from coming up, and they're going to show up in different ways, especially physically. Those symptoms that I named, pay attention. If you're somebody that struggles with migraines, if you struggle with GI issues, back issues, right? Pay attention when the onset takes place. A lot of times when I'm working with people and they'll talk about these migraines or stomach things, and I'm like, oh, sounds like when you were struggling with X, Y, and Z is when it started. Then they start paying attention. The next time the migraine comes, they're like, oh my gosh, this migraine started because I was dealing with X, Y, and Z. So really be mindful on your emotions and the way you are feeling physically so you can work on making a connection as to how these things are leading one to the other. Resentment and unresolved issues. So bottling up emotions can lead to feelings of resentment towards others, unresolved conflicts and unaddressed. Pay attention to the way that because the thing about avoiding emotions, let's say I'm struggling with my partner and how he has talked to me, and I'm not telling him. He doesn't realize, like, oh, he's saying it this way because that's the way it is in his culture. I'm American, he's Haitian, so the way we grew up looks completely different. So instead of me addressing it, I'm just like, oh, I can't believe he's talking to me like that in my head. Now, guess what my mind's going to do? My mind's only going to show me ways that he's talking to me in a certain way. And then I'm going to start struggling with him, and I'm not telling him about it. So he's not changing his behavior. And I'm constantly being upset by the way he's saying certain things. So being mindful of what you're feeling, because it's going to bring up resentment and unresolved issues in your relationships. Difficulty with intimacy. So emotional unavailability caused by avoiding emotions can create barriers and meaningful connections with others, right? So, the more you suppress, the less you are available for you because it's just you're harboring all of these things, all of these emotions. And the last thing is immune system dysfunction. Research suggests that chronic emotional suppression can lead can negatively impact the immune system, making individuals more likely to have kind of medical issues, right? So, is it worth, you can answer this question, is it worth avoiding your emotions? When you look at the consequences, I'm going to put this list up on the screen again. When you look at the consequences of avoiding emotions, the reality is that there's no positive gain to avoiding it, right? It's all things that are going to be hard for you down the road. Um, Now let's talk about techniques for recognizing emotions. Because, if you're somebody, if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I don't want to continue to avoid my emotions, let me start recognizing these emotions. Let me just play this quick advertisement. And then the last thing, we're going to talk about the techniques. I hope you're enjoying the episode. Quick announcement. I want to give you some ways you can support, right? I have two books. One is called Relationship Goals. It's a guide to a healthy relationship. I also have a guided journal. And if you find yourself stuck in thoughts, want to get your thoughts on paper, I ask you different questions and I also ask you how you're feeling. I provide you with the feelings chart. If you go to celestetherapist.com, you can find 365 days of intentional living along with relationship goals. Another way you can support me, I have this wellness center whoop, whoop, that I'm so excited about called Shifting the Way You Think Wellness Center. At my center, I do not want finances to be a reason why people can't get what they need. So if you want to donate a class to someone, please feel free to go to my website, stwyt.com, and you can give a donation. The classes run between $15 and $35. My goal is for everyone to be able to access these services regardless of finances. So if you can donate, please donate to your girl center. I would be greatly appreciated. All right, y'all, let's get back into this amazing episode. All right, let's get into the techniques for recognizing your emotions. Mindfulness practices, right? Encouraging you to practice mindfulness and become more aware of your emotional state. That's important. When it comes to life is happening. When it comes to the things we're exposed to, we don't have a filtering method on social media or the news, or when people are talking to us, they're just going to talk, they're going to say things. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Don't allow yourself to constantly find yourself distracting. I used to party Thursday through Sunday faithfully because those were the slower days. I was in school and working. And so when I look back at my life, I recognize that part of me doing all of this partying was because I was trying to escape these hard emotions. Right now, I embrace them, not because I'm like, oh my God, this feels good, but no, I don't want to deal with the consequences, right? This list right here, I don't want to deal with the consequences of not allowing my emotions to be expressed. So I no longer find myself avoiding them. Journaling is another good technique that you can use. I also have a guided journal called 365 Days of Intentional Living, where I'm asking you a question and asking you how you're feeling, right? There's a ton of journals, and it's not even about purchasing, right? Because I'm always going to be like, use what you have. So if you got a notebook and you got a pen, all you got to do is take time to inventory your day, right? If you don't want to write, if that's too much for you right now, when you take a shower or a bath, reflect there. When you are waking up in the morning, start to reflect, what do I have going on today? When you're winding down at night, think about, what am I feeling, right? Start taking inventory of what's going on so you can feel like you're more in control. The worst thing that when I reflect on my life and where I'm at now, I remember where it just felt like life was happening to me, that I didn't have any control, and I didn't have nobody to guide me through the process. It was a hard way to live life, right? And I don't live that way anymore, but I also have a passion to show people a different way of living. Body awareness. So the physical sensations that can come up, right? Your body's going to give you signs you're not okay before you may even realize it. I remember being in the ER at 14. I remember I had on a corduroy jumper. I share the story a lot on the podcast. I was hunched over, and nobody asked me like, oh, are you experiencing anything? How do you feel? They gave me muscle relaxer. They couldn't figure out why. As I got older and became more aware of like my body and how I was affected, I'm like, oh no, when I'm struggling, I feel like something just hits my back. All the pain goes radiating to my back and my stomach, right? Now, sometimes I might be doing a lot and I'd be like, oh, I need to slow down because my back's starting to hurt. So pay it, and it's not always just the back. It could be sweating. It could be migraines. It could be stomach issues, constipation, diarrhea, right? All of these things. And because, sometimes our parents grew up, they're survivors, and they didn't even have time to think about what their wellness looked like. So they definitely didn't have the time to ask you how you're feeling. What are you feeling in your body? So you learn to ignore those signs. Now that you're an adult, now that you have awareness, it's up to you to make note of what you're feeling so you're no longer ignoring those signs. And then just emotional check-ins. Check in with yourself. How you feeling? How did you sleep? When I don't have a good sleep, I'll check in with myself. Sometimes it's because guess what? I'm on Netflix freaking watching these limited series that I love. I love the shows where you don't really know what's gonna happen next. Like I just love that. I hate when I know what's gonna happen next or it feels so predictable. And if I start it late, and it's hard for me to press pause and wait for the next day, so a lot of times I won't start it if it's late. So sometimes it's like, okay, I didn't sleep well because I stayed up watching Netflix. Sometimes I might be struggling with something that I need to do or haven't done. So start taking check-ins about yourself and how you're feeling. When it comes to starting a business, right? I said I would tie that in. When it comes to starting a business, there's going to be a lot of fear that's going to come up, especially if you weren't exposed to other business owners. I was never exposed to other business owners. This is something that was placed in my heart and my spirit, and I just kept following the breadcrumbs. When I first started, I just went on Instagram and started posting motivational quotes because affirmations was something that was big to me and I wanted to share it with the world. I had no money, no knowledge about no private practice, nothing. From there, books was created. From there, podcast was created, right? The more I acknowledged my emotion around it, because as I'm starting things, there are a lot of emotions that come with it because it's so new to me. I don't allow myself to not do things because of the emotion. I check in with myself. I remind myself on what my purpose is and why I'm doing it. I tell myself that these emotions that I'm feeling are part of the process and I keep it pushing. So I need you to work on start acknowledging what's happening with you, how you're feeling, and giving yourself what you need. So I really hope this was helpful. Being able to honor your emotions is such a gift, right? Um, when I'm working with people and they'll cry, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're crying. Not because I want you to be sad, especially for people that don't typically embrace emotions or embrace how they feel. I'm like, this is going to allow you to get to the place that you need to be. And so, yes, it may be hard to sit still and be in the moment with your emotions, but little by little, give yourself time to embrace a new lifestyle because if you're human, you're going to have emotions. So don't forget, if you love this episode, share it with somebody that you love. Don't forget, follow me on all social media platforms. Follow me on YouTube by searching Celeste the Therapist. Don't forget, we have a whole wellness center with events that are taking place on a regular basis. So if you are in the South Shore area, we are located in Stoughton, Mass. You can go to my website to see the events that are coming up, and that's stwyt.com/events. And if you want to support me, don't forget, I have books that you can purchase or classes, or you can also donate to the center. So until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.